Yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
Got it. Okay. So in this conversation, Anton will keep it really hardcore. So no buzzwords or vendor slides. We will talk about from the first principles perspective and really understand where SOC is today and where it is headed. And so with that, let's get into the details. So, in my mind, Anton, I view you as one of the godfathers of security operations. You have seen it all, like how SOC has evolved from manual alert triaging to partial automation. Where do you think, from your perspective, where are we today?
Where are we today is a bit of a hard to answer without too many buzzwords. I definitely see a pretty broad range of maturities. And the notable thing is that I see more modern detection response operations, again, based on the engineering first, engineering led principles, what we described in our now classic ASO, Autonomic Security Operations paper, which is very engineering first, where people, teams kind of refuse to even be identified as SOC because of the letter O. They don't think of themselves as operators, but engineers, kind of like SRE or DevOps, but for detection and response. And then from that, I see very late 90s SOCs with like big monitors, people sitting in chairs, like very rigid shift changes, very like basically they pick the best blueprint for SOC. And I'm thinking of a particular white paper a SIM vendor wrote in 2002, and just basically do all that, but in 2025. I've seen those, and shockingly, I've seen people build the 2002 SOC in 2022. They almost get the blueprint and build everything, and then nobody tells them, hey guys, look at the date in this paper. It's 2002. They think of it as fundamentals, but a lot of things change, yet some of the SOCs really do look like they did in 2002 with slightly better tools. Like we didn't have EDR in 2002, so they have EDR. Or we had a different network detection. Now they have the more modern network detection. But the SOC is a 2002 SOC in 2025. So it's a range, and so it's kind of hard to summarize where the true medium or mean is.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a range. But like one constant thing that we constantly hear is SOCs are overwhelmed with alerts, right? And this, in my mind, seems like more of a symptom, not a problem. Why? What is that exact problem from your perspective that we are not naming when we say that?
So I was kind of obsessed about it for quite a bit. And if you are into very long blog posts, and in this case, this one is very long. There's a blog post called Anton's Alert Fatigue, the study. The name is quite pretentious. I know that. Sorry, I am sometimes that way. But I try to basically answer the question you're answering, is that why is, and my setup was, if you take a time machine and fly to, again, 2005, and you ask a SOC analyst at the time, hey, what's the big problem? And they would be like, alert fatigue. And you'd be like, me too, I'm from 2025. And it's like, whoa, wait a second. It's not what the poor guy would think we would have in 2025. But we do. So it's the staying power is what makes me want to explore it. So I want to give you like some highlights, but it's probably still useful reading. My impression is that a lot of this goes back to the fact that we suck at detection. And that's why I'm a little nervous when, let's say, 30 AI SOC vendors, and we'll get to that buzzword in a few moments, show up and say, we'll fix alert fatigue. And they all start with building an agent for triage, which is handy. But if the underlying problem is not triage, but that we suck at detection, and is the doing triage faster, better, is going to go only partially solving the problem. I'll be very, very generous and very mellow in my answers this time. And there's enough of the why is it broken organizationally? Why aren't we better at detection? But to me, it points as where do alerts come from? Alerts aren't weather. They don't just happen to us magically. Even though in some SOCs, where there's no relationship between the content developers or content engineers or rule writers, whatever, and SOC analysts, alerts do just come from the sky. And that to me is a massive contributing factor, that if you never met the person who built the rules that produced the alerts and you're the SOC analyst, there's kind of almost no hope for you. I don't want to be like very dark. And of course, we just recorded a podcast about AI apocalypse, so I guess I'm a little dark. But the point is that if you never talk or never connect or never care for what makes the alert happen, then they don't think you can fix your SOC. I think that it's the building that bridge to content design or engineering, however you want to call it. You can use a 2002 term or 2025 term. The point is the same. Detection engineering versus content authoring. Like in that sense, they're comparable. So you need to dig into that to fix the fatigue. But beyond that, alert fatigue, the study is a good kind of journey through all the methods.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Since you touched on this a little bit, like AI SOC, and we are hearing a lot of marketing and buzzwords around AI SOC. So, how, when people talk about AI SOC, from your view, what should an actual AI SOC looks like?
I would start in a bit of a strange spot. I would start by saying that I'm not a big fan of the term AI SOC. And the reason for this is that if you want a short, pithy line, is that AI in a SOC, yes, AI SOC, no. And what I mean by this is that I certainly see, well, both proposed and actually real functioning use cases for AI, Gen AI, or AI agents in a SOC. I'm not arguing against AI in SOC, but I am kind of gently arguing against AI SOC. And the reason for this is kind of the misleading marketing that sometimes happens. I'll be very generous and mellow by saying sometimes. Sometimes when a vendor builds an AI SOC tool set, whether it's essentially an algorithmic SOAR without pre-canned playbooks or some form of better SIM, this is secondary. And it does what they say it does. Let's say their marketing is mostly adequate and describes what they do correctly. Rare, but happens. But when they sell to somebody, the SOC manager boss, or maybe boss's boss, and occasionally boss's boss's boss, thinks, I have human SOC. I can tear it down, destroy it, have AI SOC instead. That to me is the main kind of risk of the AI SOC label, because even before Gen AI onslaught and the sort of revolution, I don't know, however you put it, I was so disillusioned by some of this that I wrote a blog called, pardon my French, A Brief Guide for Dealing with Humanness SOC Idiots. It's basically, how do you talk to people who think that in no time we'll have SOC with 0 people? And it is not, I swear, it is not only vendor's fault. It is not only the marketing's fault. It's that there are people who just want to believe. Maybe they had to sign a check for SOC costs or whatever. But the point is, when you say AI SOC, somewhere, somehow a big boss thinks, I can fire my entire security operations team. And that to me is the false promise. It's absolutely, utterly false. I mean, I can tell you that right away in a very direct manner. But to me, this is the risk of saying AI SOC. But absolutely, I have use cases for AI and SOC. They're very robust. They're real.
Do you think, though, with AI SOC, are there certain, you know, how SOC operations have level 1, level 2, level 3 kind of analysts? Do you think AI in SOC is able to automate some version of the work that a lower level analyst might be doing? Or do you think even that is beyond hope?
So this is an interesting question. And to me, this truly combines the 1990s SOC, which is derived from NOC, and 2025 technology. And is that really the best way to go? Like, I can remember my late Gartner days, 2018, 2019. I read the classic article that Netflix people wrote, SOCless, about SOCless detection. This is 2018. And I kind of got very enlightened again back when I was at Gartner in 2018. I started asking other clients, and I found some more examples of that. But the whole dissolution of 1, 2, 3 layers and focusing from levels to skills, doing other things, doing engineering first, designs, like there are many other alternative detection and response team models that are broadly brushed as SOCless by some people. To me, and deep in my heart, I don't have the full blueprint. I will probably eventually make it. It is a lot easier to add AI to a SOCless DNR than to add it to the level 1, level 2, level 3, because it just sends us down a very strange mental paths. Like I go and say, oh yeah, I have AI SOC tool. Here it is. And the customer says, great, thank you. What does it do? I'll say, I'll replace level 1s. And I'm like, okay, so what do level 2s do? They get alerts from that thing? Like, and then, so essentially that's a layer that at the bottom becomes machines and then humans, but then what if machines do bad alerts? You can't complain. Like, a lot of this just sends them down to the old mental models, but with AI. So to me, this is the source of fear. I can maintain this conversation. I can debate levels and AI contribution to each level, but I put deep in my heart prefer you to just to sort of evolve your SOC a little bit so that you're not even adding the AI to a 1990s SOC. You're adding AI to a 1970s NOC. Maybe that would scare you into action. So this part of improving with very modern tech, a very old practice, is what makes me nervous. And again, can be done, is being done, sometimes the only way to go for a bit, but it's, to me, where things can go from decent to decent plus, or from bad
Got it.
to kind of okay, but they're not going to go from mediocre to great, or definitely not from bad to great. They would be gradually improved. Kind of like what we discussed a moment ago with alert triage. If I magically triage alerts, but my detection still sucks, my SOC still sucks. It's sorry,
Yeah.
but like I'm not really doing that much better.
Yeah. So maybe like since you're touching on this, I would love to get you deeper into this and get your perspective. So today, if Anton gets an opportunity to build a SOC grounds up, right, or security, let's say security operations grounds up, how would you go about doing that, or what would be critical elements of that?
So it's absolutely fascinating that my next call after this one is a design for a paper that describes exactly that. So this is it's maybe like 80% complete. We're doing it with Deloitte, and it's the actual how would you do a SOC from scratch in 2025. And I've seen, but a lot of the ideas would probably come from the engineering first or engineering led operations or SOCless or ASO, however you think about it. And they would be sort of diluted a little bit because for some companies, that's too big of a jump. As a related note, I've spoken to somebody, and there's a podcast that we recorded with them, who basically didn't do a migration from old SOC to new SOC or to new model. They sort of did the tear down and rebuild. And to me, their lessons are kind of really interesting. I'll post the link to this podcast to
That'd be
the
great.
show notes. But it's an interesting point because it's not from scratch. This bank did have a SOC probably for many years, but it's interesting that instead of pushing gradual improvements, at some point they said, okay, we're aware of the new models. They're very inspired by ASO, by Google experiences, by others. And they said, hey, we should probably just redo. We shouldn't gradually push it to better. And their experience was successful. It was a lot of work, was kind of 2-3 years of work, but it worked out. So to me, the reason I'm going there is that if I'm doing a SOC from scratch, I would probably try to build a more engineering-led DNR operation, detection and response operation, rather than, hey, Anton, what chairs would you have for analysts level 2? How would you do handoff? I would try to sort of push it away and say that, hey, you're building something for the future, and you want to have, by the way, I'm resistant to say AI native. You would use AI in the beginning. You would use AI from your starting point. You would have data quality suitable for AI. You would have modern pipelines, and you would have process maturity that includes that AI can make mistakes. Again, I'm sort of going to my other blog about AI readiness of your SOC. But to me, that I would build an AI-ready SOC from day one, and I would base it on the ASO/engineering first principles for detection and response.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's I think is the future that we are going towards. Especially, we are seeing like even Google published this report where the attackers are using AI to launch these different attacks, which are adapting in users' environment. And in that case, like having something which adapts as the threat, like the attackers adapt, would be makes more sense in my mind. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. But you'd also try to. That's another pet peeve that I bring up sometimes is that when I'm doing this, I am less scared about attackers doing something horrendously malicious. I'm much more scared about business doing something so rapid, fast, and dramatic, then it would sideline me. Ultimately, I expect to be surprised by attackers. So surprises by attackers are surprising, but I expect surprises. In theory, IT and business shouldn't surprise me, but they do. And so I am more scared about that in my DNR work, advisory work, than I am of the attacker whipping up a super weapon and slicing my SOC in part. I am kind of more ready for that, but I'm not ready for business pulling something that slices my SOC efficiency.
Makes sense. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So then, from that perspective, how do you see an analyst role evolve or change over the next 3 years?
So this is another one where I am I'm going to stop you for a moment and say, hey, you presuppose the existence of a SOC analyst role, and then you probably presuppose the existence of levels, which again kind of
Goes
sends my
against
mind down to if I have a traditional SOC and if I would still have a traditional SOC in 2030, what would I do?
Right.
And I would kind of be gently push at that and say, to be honest, if I'm doing a more modern version of a detection response operation, and in 3 years, I would have a lot more stuff built by humans with help from machines and AI, so that there would be a few tasks left for humans, for sure. First is decide what to build. This is the ultimately a very human task. We would need to look at things, at the money available, at the risks available, and decide what to build. To me, and for that task, AI would offer advice, but AI would not decide that. Humans would. So the architectural analysis and design, what are we detecting? What do we care? What do we have money to detect? A lot of this would probably be humans. Oversight of how machines function. Even today, I see people who run their detection response functions on this modern principles. I see them essentially validate, does the pipeline work well? Why is the volume slagging? What dropped? Did anything change unpredictably? Did business do something that would make the pipeline less effective? What about my detection? Why is it not performing anymore? Why is it performing but not as well? I mean, a lot of this would be humans with AI, but ultimately would be human-led. And to me, there would be types of top-shelf threat hunting that would always be human. I annoyed a bunch of people in my Gartner days by pointing out that that hunting is, by definition, a human-led process, an analyst-led process. And then a whole bunch of vendors showed up from the woodwork and said, no, we build a machine to hunt. And when we look at this, in many cases, what we see is kind of a machine to detect, which is fine. It's a great machine, I'm sure. Hunting is, to me, the whole hypothesis-led approach. And of course, Gen AI helps with this. I do use and I do see people who use Gen AI to generate hunting hypotheses based on threat intel. Like, all that is very fair. But to me, the certain types of hunting for the certain top shelf attackers would remain to be a human with tools, not you go ask the machine to do it and it just does it. I would also, and this is like the last item, would likely be more judgment calls on things where machines are stumbled. It will happen. It would absolutely happen. And the reason machines will stumble because attackers want them to stumble. Attackers get the vote, right? And that's kind of an important one, right? You are not building a better database. We would have humans would need judgment calls in some areas where the machines are uncertain what to do or do the wrong thing or stuck. I mean, we're talking about this in 2025. People do report agents being tasked with a certain thing and then being stuck. Somebody expected it to finish in 2 hours, and then in the morning, the agent was still deliberating with itself about something. So you probably don't want that in your DNR. So there would be a big red button, human takes over kind of stuff. Like, all that would require humans. And at some point, of course, there would be a human role. Again, maybe you can call it a particular type of a judgment call, but it's a judgment call about whether to do anything at all about certain things, because you would have risk acceptance. I think this is probably, in the entire space of security, I really think that risk acceptance decision is going to be human for a very long time, because I don't know, this is like one of those decisions, if I delegate to a machine, I'd have a lot of grief.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think there would be certain elements where you would always want human to make those decisions rather than just outsourcing it for agents. I want to double click on the threat hunting piece specifically, because I do hear a lot of marketing buzzword buzzing around. We have built a threat hunting agent, and and it goes back to the things that you have discovered, that they are just either generating just hypotheses about threat hunting, but what in the threat hunting piece is so hard for analyst LLM-based agents to be able to automate? Like, why do you think there would always be a human analyst involved in that?
I'm not gonna go for. I mean, I think saying always, given the rapid change of AI development, is kind of tricky. I don't think I don't like the always frame. To me is a difficult one. I think I can talk about short to medium term future. I can make some informed guesses for longer term, but always is tough. Today, I feel like some teams that hunt face a long list of things to try. And I can, again, in the good old days, which means 2018, when I did write the Gartner hunting paper, we talked about, like, say, allocate a day to certain tasks. Like, this is my persistence day and this is my exfil day, and I go and run a whole bunch of things I can think of for methods I've learned. But these piles have gotten quite large, environments have gotten quite complex, and so I probably would want the machine to run the hypothesis, bring in the data, and do some preliminary analysis, and say, hey, we've run these 30 things about the persistence mechanisms. 27 of them produced nothing, so we are probably clean in that regard. 2 produced something that is a little iffy. I don't know what it means. And 1 produced something that I still don't know what it means, but it's probably bad. And then at that point, a human would take over and say, okay, there's one that's probably bad. Let's see. This one. Yeah, this team always builds the application where they inject stuff in memory. That's totally legit. We should probably tell them again to not do it, but it is our team of developers doing it for these specific machines. So machine was right that it is a suspicious outcome of the hypothesis was true, was matched. There's like a kind of threat actor found, but it's just not a threat actor doing it. It's the developers use a slightly less standard approach to something, which in the good old times, it was a certain file sharing app that used to inject stuff in memory. And I'm like, wait a second, why are they injecting in memory? They shouldn't be doing this. But they did for some reason, and so a lot of EDRs alerted on that. So I'm just making up my example based on that. And then 2 others are kind of interesting. So human goes and says, yeah, this really is interesting. Why does it happen? And then maybe it would ask AI for confirming, checking other things, running other queries, and then we either discover an attacker or we calm down and say, okay, our hunting activities for this time are complete. So this is the collaboration model, but human role is very much there.
Makes sense. Yeah, 100%. I think we are also kind of thinking about it in the similar ways. We are not thinking about it completely automating end to end without a human judgment call will always be there when we think about this as well. All right. So I know this topic is very near to your heart. So when you think about the metrics to define success of a AI in SOC or AI driven SOC, how would you think about the right metrics for that?
Metrics is a very tough one, and I think that I'm going to go on a maybe somewhat short philosophical, rant about the fact that the reason why we are talking about metrics is because you pay for somebody's AI SOC toolset to have AI in your SOC, or maybe you build AI for a SOC, whatever, and then you expect something to be better. But when you expect something to be better, that means you measure something, and then your something was 50, and now it's 70, whatever the thing is. So you say, aha, I usually had 50, now I have 70, it's better. People who don't have that, I have no idea, I have absolutely no clue how they report to their bosses that they paid $500K for an AI SOC tool chain, and now they have an AI SOC tool chain. But what is better? Are they spending less time? Do humans truly mostly drink coffee and play games? Do humans do other things and the AI SOC just runs the SOC? Like, what has changed? And I think a lot of people, that's point number 1. Point number 2 is a lot of people really rush to speed and say, MTTD, MTTD, and they start chanting MTTD. And I say, well, MTTD and other speed metrics are good. You sort of almost expect that when you use a machine for something, it's faster. But if you just obsess about speed, without truly looking for, like, actually, did you achieve the result? Do you have quality? Do you have effectiveness, efficiency, whatever? You're probably going to lose, because it's much faster to just click accept. You can write a script, very dumb, very not AI, to basically say resolve alert, and it's going to be really fast. It wouldn't be MTTD, admittedly. It would be kind of mean time to resolve. But resolve means what? Close the alert. So when you go and push the speed button, you should also make sure to push the other button for am I getting what I want? If something is 2 times faster, 2 times cheaper, and 10 times worse, you're probably not saving money, even though your speed metric looks good, your save money metric looks good, but getting result metric is really in hell, then probably not. So I would kind of balance the speed metrics with either coverage or whatever else. And I would also add that a lot of detection quality requires you to go detection breadth, meaning that am I detecting everything I need to detect? Well, for this, you need to know what you need to detect, and then you can check whether you're detecting all of it. So some of the coverage metrics isn't about check every MITRE ATT&CK box. It's more about awareness of what you want to detect, where you absolutely have to detect, and then making sure that you have layers of that. Like, I don't recall if I invented the term detection in depth, probably not. It's been used by many in the industry, but I would also say for these things I have to detect, I'm going to have multiple layers. I'm going to have ADR, I'm going to have login, I'm going to have NDR, I'm going to have other stuff, and then I'm going to have a machine look at all of them and tell me, hey, I think NDR missed it and EDR missed it, but here in the log it's a little suspicious. Human, hey, take a look. And then I may detect like that. Would it be a win for AI? Well, yeah, I think it would be a win for AI because AI ultimately guided a human in the right spot.
Makes sense. Yeah. So ultimately, like if from a company's perspective, if you're looking, your actual goal is to defend your company, right? Like the primary metric should always begin with there. Like, are we able to detect and defend properly? And then go back from that, like what metrics should I track to be able to see if I am doing it correctly or not? And I think that makes sense.
Yes, correct. That's the idea. And I mean, maybe you can say that I kind of avoided the direct answer to like, give me top 3 metrics. And I think I've done enough of that in my Gartner days when here's the favorite list. Right now, Forrester publishes a lot of really good metrics, but ultimately our convo is about AI. And if you have some metrics that you built, you should probably see that adoption of AI improved something, right? Like that sounds kind of logical that something has gotten better after you added AI. And that to me should be there. Otherwise, you're in bigger trouble.
Yeah, makes sense. 100%. I know that we have probably like 1 minute left for this podcast. Anything, Anton, that is top of mind for you that we have not covered in the conversation that you would really love to tell our audience?
I think it was a fun one. I don't have any additional pithy points and insights. I'll add a couple of links to our show notes and link it in so that people can refer to things we discussed. And another paper is coming soon, so I don't really have it yet, but it would be something that probably would help people who are trying to build a SOC from scratch in 2025.
This was very great to hear all your thoughts, Anton. You have really championed how AI can truly transform security operations today and how companies should think about it. So really appreciate that, real perspective on this rather than just a very marketing-led perspective on things. So appreciate your time today.
Yes, perfect. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.